Hello, dear viewers, and welcome to this very special interview with a very distinguished guest, the grandson of Nelson Mandela. Welcome home, Chief Mandela. It's a great pleasure to have you here on our channel.
We are very honored and happy to come to what we regard as our second home. As you know that Algeria has always been in a very special place in my grandfather's heart.
To begin with, you have sent a letter today to the Algerian president, and you were received by him yesterday. How was your encounter with the president regarding the consolidation of bilateral relation between our two countries?
We were very happy to meet with the president as he honored my grandfather by naming one of the most beautiful stadiums in the African continent, and after our global icon, His Excellency President Nelson Mandela. So we wanted to first and foremost thank the President of the Republic of Algeria for this great achievement. But again, Algeria, we had to say to the President, has always had a special place in my grandfather's heart. This is where he came in 1962 to receive his military training, and Algeria has supported us through our struggle for liberation, has supported us in attaining our freedom that we enjoy today, continues to support us through this new political dispensation. So we had to say to the President that this achievement solidifies our relationship as Algeria and South Africa. But most importantly, it is a symbolism of our achievement in decolonizing Africa. We still have a lot more in our midst. As you know, that the last colony of Africa, Western Sahara, is still colonized by our member state, and we need to intensify our efforts in fighting for that liberation. But we were very happy to participate in the opening of the stadium yesterday.
Exactly, yes. So the naming of the stadium of Baraki that you attended, the inauguration of which you attended the inauguration yesterday, shouldn't come as a surprise since Nelson Mandela had an intimate, almost fusional relationship with Algeria. Now, what created this fusion and strong relationship between Nelson Mandela and Algeria, and also between our two countries, knowing that they are very far geographically, one in the north and one in the south of the African continent, but very close historically?
I think we can basically coin it as unity, the unity of the African continent, because this is what led to my grandfather embarking, coming into visiting Algeria in 1962 to mobilize for our support in our struggle for liberation. But it was during that period that he not only visited Algeria, he went to 16 other countries, crisscrossing the continent, ensuring that we were able to find comrades and brothers that we can be able to align with. And it was in Algeria where I think Mikhail Cabral coins it best when he says that all Muslims go to Mecca, all Christians go to Rome, but all revolutionaries in the African continent come to Algeria. And this has been the importance of why he came to Algeria, and he met many leaders at the time who themselves never thought that they'll be presidents, but came out of that revolution inspired by the Algerian liberation for themselves to be able to fight an effective campaign in their own countries in overthrowing our oppressors. But I think what is special about Algeria and the fact that my grandfather, upon his release, the first country he visited was Algeria, to come and cement that relationship, to come and ensure that our journey is not yet over. We need to continue to be the voice of the voiceless, to fight for many other oppressed nations around the world. And therefore, for us, it will always be about the importance of African unity. Can we be able to collaborate at regional level, at continental level, and at global level? South Africa and Algeria have been doing that, and we are doing it at the Pan-African Parliament, at the African Union, and at the United Nations on matters of interest. And I think what we are now trying to fine-tune and ensure that we come closer to one another is to intensify those programs.
Now, we know that there is a very well-known phrase that Nelson Mandela said, or sentence. He said that Algeria has made me a man. Algeria was a source of inspiration for him, as you have mentioned, especially in his anti-apartheid struggle. He even devoted his first visit, like you just mentioned, to a trip to Algeria in the 90s after spending 27 years in apartheid jails. And after decades, his grandson, you're visiting here Algeria. What does it feel like to be here, and what does Algeria represent to you?
In 2018, I embarked on that journey because it was my grandfather's centenary. I wanted to truly understand what Madiba meant when he said Algeria made him a man. And I recall the many conversations I've had with him about his visit to Algeria. And even on his first visit, when he was released coming here, he got off the plane and was received by the president. And he immediately wanted to connect with the people that he was with while he was here in '62. And he asked, "Where's Jamal? Where's Judy?" And the Algerians and the president were caught by surprise because they didn't think Madiba would remember them. But unfortunately, General Jamal had passed on over the years, but Comrade Judy was still alive. I had the pleasure of meeting him in 2018. And I think those and that generation have been an inspiration, not only to my grandfather, but to many South Africans. The role that the presidency in Algeria has played. And you would recall His Excellency President Boumediene's speech in the United Nations, where he called out apartheid and campaigned for it to be declared a crime against humanity. And these are the memories that we will always treasure and hold to high regard about the role that Algeria has been playing, not only for us as South Africans, but right across the continent. And we hope to see Africans reaching out to one another. And we hope that through this tournament in the Africa Cup of Nations, which will be kicked off this evening, we will see an African unity being displayed, and it will be a legacy that we can be able to build upon.
Chief Mandela, you're a member of Parliament of the African National Congress since 2009, a Congress that bears the wounds of racial segregation. How are you keeping Madiba's message and legacy for future generations?
We are a country that bears many scars from the time of colonialism, 350 years of that, coupled with apartheid brutality over 60 years. And we have not done enough to heal from those scars of the past. But I think most importantly, Madiba's legacy is about the future that we desire for the future generation. And ours is to ensure that we continue to work for nation building and national unity within our country first and foremost. We need to deracialize and fight tribalism in South Africa. We need to rid ourselves of the recent problems we are facing as far as corruption, where we are seeing leaders of today having become self-serving leaders that are only interested in their own pockets. And this is the legacy right throughout the African continent. And I think if we can win this battle at home, we can be able to start showing Africa, well, the SADC region first and foremost, and the greater African continent as to the vision that the older generation, like Julius Nyerere, Patrice Lumumba, Kwame Nkrumah, and we can name many others, Kenneth Kaunda, aspired for this beautiful land of ours. And I think that it is in that regard that we uphold Madiba's legacy, and we look at the experiences that he himself had to overcome. And he concludes his book by saying that he has had to cross many rivers in his life and had to climb many mountains. And he's sitting on top of a hill enjoying the vista that surrounds him. Whilst he looks back, he realizes the rivers and the mountain tops that he's had to overcome. Yet when he looks ahead, he comes to the realization that there's many more rivers and mountains to overcome. He may no longer be with us today, but the baton has been handed to us as the next generation. And it's our time as young people right across the continent to step up to the level and ensure that we become activists and we become a voice of the voiceless. We need to rid ourselves of the epidemic challenges that we are facing as a continent.
There is a famous quote, "For to be free is not merely to cast off one's chain, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others." This is a famous quote of your grandfather about freedom and social justice. Today, Western Sahara is the last colony in the African continent, as you have mentioned as well, and your grandfather was a fervent defendant of the Sahrawi case. As an activist, what does the Sahrawi question mean to you?
The Sahrawi Republic sits on my right hand. I always wear a bracelet that I was given by His Excellency President Ghali. On my visit to Algeria, I had the opportunity to visit Western Sahara. I flew to Tindouf and experienced firsthand what our brothers and sisters are experiencing in occupied Western Sahara. And therefore, I promised that I would live the rest of my days in the fight of realizing a free Western Sahara. And it is heartbreaking that it could be one of our member states that has colonized a Western Sahara. And I think this issue needs to be dealt head on. We as South Africa have been advocates for the struggle for self-determination for the Sahrawi Republic. And we have been able, as SADC region, to invite His Excellency President Ghali to South Africa for a solidarity conference, which was held by the SADC region. And it is what we want to take into our regional structures and continental structures. And I think now that we have Chief Charumbwira as the president of the Pan-African Parliament, we are going to be able to have these debates coming into that institution. But also I think at the African Union level, we need to really engage on this matter.
Step up the
and
game.
Ensure that we do not just pay lip service, but we take critical steps to ensuring that we realize a decolonized Africa in our lifetime. And if we are serious about that, then we need to focus on the Western Sahara issue.
And when talking about just causes, we can't miss mentioning the Palestinian question, can we?
Well, Palestine would be the second most dear issue to our heart after Western Sahara. As you know that my grandfather has always regarded Palestine as the greatest moral issue of our time, yet the world is silent on the matter. On his visit to Gaza in 1995, he said our freedom is yet incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinian people. And this is a deep-rooted issue for us because we remember the comrades and brothers and sisters that stood side by side with us during our struggle for liberation. And the Palestinians stood there with us. They didn't support our struggle in words, but they placed resources like Algeria, like Libya, like Cuba, to ourselves to effectively fight our oppressors. And in achieving our freedom, we have to ensure that we also rid themselves of the challenges they are facing. So the Palestinian issue is at really a center of our activist work, and we will not rest until we realize a free Palestine. Many of us believe that we are at a time where the South African struggle for liberation was so intense that we could see that we are coming to the dawn of breaking through that oppressive era. And such is the situation for our Palestinian brothers and sisters. You've seen today they are facing the worst brutal regime as led by Netanyahu and the Zionist regime. Yes. And we believe it is at this point that we'll be able to turn the tide. The support that we have been enjoying from the global community, and you've seen what the power of social media has been able to do for the Palestinians. Many people now are becoming conscious about the atrocities, the brutality, and the daily plight that is meted against defenseless women and children in particular. And it is a fight that we have committed ourselves to winning in our lifetime.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've said before that Africa is still living some sort of colonization, but in several of your media appearances, we feel that you have a focus on the future. What should Africa do to live in a fairer and freer continent?
Well, we have seen some of the borders that have been imposed on Africa being somewhat erased, in the sense that we now have a free trade agreement that is being put in place. But I think for Africans, first and foremost, free trade has to mean that we are able to trade within the African continent, utilize our resources to build Africa. Africa has been used in the past to building first world countries in Europe and in the West. Our resources, our people have been taken as slaves, used as cheap labor in order to build foreign countries. But we need to ensure that we utilize all our resources to build infrastructure, to build a safe and secure environment for the future generation. And I think we need to do a lot in order of ensuring that young people in particular have access to free education. This is one thing that ourselves as a family have focused on, because Madiba regarded education to be a weapon you can utilize to change the world. And this is where we have focused on in building schools and ensuring that rural Africans are not left behind. We live in a rural village where Madiba was born and is buried. And the life is still the same as if it were 2 centuries ago. Our people are still living with no access to clean drinkable water. They have no access to proper sanitation. In some areas, they still don't have electricity. And it cannot be in the 21st century where there's various opportunities and solutions that can ensure that they are able to gain electricity, and we accept that to be a normality. And therefore, we're going to work to strive to ensure that we rid ourselves of the plight in rural areas, and we can be able to see our countries develop to becoming first world nations.
To wrap up, Chief Mandela, what message do you carry for Algerians?
Continue to being the spark for the African continent. Many of us have always held Algeria to high regard because you have led by example. You sacrificed 1 million people to attain your own liberation, but never stopped there. You continued to support poorest of the poor nations on the African continent in fighting for their own liberation. And I think it is such leadership that we require throughout the continent. And one of the casing points yesterday was witnessing His Excellency, the President of Algeria, saying, these stadiums are not just for us as Algerians. They are for poor nations that don't have these facilities, that should they be able to qualify for Olympics, to qualify for Africa Cup of Nations, to qualify for the World Cup, they can come and utilize our facilities, train here, and prepare to go participate in international sports. And this is what we want to see throughout the continent, that we build unity amongst African countries, and we see each other as one continent and speaking with one voice.
With one voice. Thank you so much for accepting the invite and for joining us.
Thank you. It's been an honor, the privilege to be here with you.
Thank you, and thank you for keeping it here on our channel. We shall see you on next interviews. Take care.